Hi guys and girls on YouTube, welcome to my channel. We've got a quick little video here. It's not going to be a long one, and it's definitely not going to be a full repair. We're just going to take a quick look at this vintage TV because I do have quite a lot on this week and I've got to get the van ready for the MOT. So let's come over here, pick up the camera, and I've covered it up. Now I've already had this set on. I've just been reforming the capacitors, ready to plug it in. I have just tried it. It does have a few faults. Now this is a set that I'd largely forgotten about. I do remember the last time I repaired one of these, and it was in the early 90s, probably 91, 92, and I've never actually seen one since I got this from my friend. So let's pull the cover off and see what we've got. Right, so does anybody recognise that? It's a Sony KV-2000UB Mark II. It's the Trinitron tube. So let's swing it round the back. Have a quick look at the back. Right, now that's the back view. My friend I got this off. He says this was working about 25 years ago when it was laid up. And it has obviously been repaired in the past because there's a sticker there and it said thyristor on it. So let's move over to the model plate there. Now I seem to remember a very common fault in these was the thyristor at SG613. There's not actually a thyristor, no, it's a gate control switch. And the very last one of these I repaired, I actually converted it into a line output transistor because the gate control switches at the time were about £18, and that was a lot of money then for one semiconductor. And if you made a mistake, you blow it straight away. So let's stop the camera and get the back off this and have a look inside. Right, so that's the picture with the back off. Now back in the 1980s, I was never a big fan of Sony's. Because the early ones, everything was hand wired and you couldn't unplug any of the boards, you couldn't test anything. It's really difficult to work on. But this is all modular construction. Everything plugs in on plugs and sockets. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 boards. All of these come out of the set really easy. And everything's so easy to get to. Now I didn't have a lot of service manuals back in them days for the Sony. Because I was never a great fan, and if you get any parts for Sony, they were always expensive. So what I used to use is this. It's a compilation of all the Sony service manuals between 1971 and 1987. That's my old shop there. So if we turn over to here, I've actually marked the page. So here's the full workshop service manual for the KV-2000UB Mark II. So I don't think there's going to be any problem repairing this. But I've dug out my Sony TV fault finding guide. Now I can only actually remember the last one I did of these. It's a set largely forgotten about, but I must have done more than what I actually thought, because when I look through this, I've made quite a few references in here to this particular set. Right, so we turn over to the Sony, there we go, KV-2000. I've actually made quite a lot of references to faults on these TVs. If we turn over, I've made more there. So although I've largely forgotten about this set, I must have actually repaired more of these than what I thought. So there we go, guys. Let's get the telly plugged in, and I'll show you the problems with it. Let's just have one more quick look. That's the power supply. That just unplugs with one plug. That's easy to get to. That's the time base. Up here, there we have the horizontal output transformer, and a very small separate little flyback transformer just there. And all that does is generate the EHT supply and the focus supply. It does nothing else. All the auxiliary supplies come from that little horizontal output transformer there. So let's turn it round, let's get it plugged in and have a look at the picture on it first. Right, so we plugged in. Now I've noticed that the on and off switch is a little bit dodgy, but Sony always had a problem with the on and off switches. In fact, in some sets they used to burn up. But I think this is just a bit sticky with age and perhaps a bit of lubricant. So it's plugged in. If we give it a good press, it will work.
By what investigators
I've already tuned it into a skybox, as you can hear by the sound. Let's just turn the sound down a bit. And as you can see, the pictures come on. We do have a lack of width in the sides. I can see some striations there caused by ringing in the line stage. We've also got, I don't know if you can see on the camera, it might not show up, but there's a lot of flyback lines. Oh yeah, I've turned the brightness down. You can see a lot of flyback lines on the picture. Now that's probably due to the video output and decoupling capacitor. But apart from that, it's not too bad. It's a little bit out of focus, but that might be down to that capacitor. I would imagine at this sort of age it's going to be dried out. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just change a few caps first, and then come back to it in a minute. Let's have a look in there. Colour. Grayscale. It's a little bit green. It could just want tweaking, or the tube could be worn. And also we've got a bit of flaring on the red. But let's change a couple of caps first and see what that does. Right, so my first port of call is going to be the capacitor that smooths the supply to the video output rail. Now if we trace the collectors, it comes down here. It appears to be line 50, standard practice, fed from the horizontal output transformer. It would appear to be that one there. I think it says C807 4.7250 volts. So that's the first thing we need to change. Also on this board, C809 there, 33 mic. That's to the line driver transformer. We're going to change that or check it. And also that point there should be a convenient point to connect a meter to measure the HT rail, which according to the power supply here comes out at 135 volts. And there's another capacitor there we're going to check, because either of these two will give you a lack of width if the HT rail's down. So okay, let's stop the camera. So as I said earlier on in the video, the modular construction of these makes them so easy to work on, that I've just decided to unplug the board. Rather than change any parts with the board in situ, we'll just unplug it like that and take it over to the other bench, have a bit more light on it. Right, so let's take a close look at this. I presume that's the line driver transformer. That's the horizontal output transformer. I'm not sure what that is. That looks like a pin cushion correction choke. There's the get it the right way up, SG613. That's the keep wanting to call it a thyristor. That's the gate control switch. Now let's look at the back. As you can see, there's a very generous use of solder. Anywhere where you'd expect a dry joint, Sony have put lots and lots of solder on to make sure it doesn't suffer from a dry joint. So a very easy set to work on. Right, so let's get about changing a couple of caps on this board then, see where we go from there. So just as I expected, the video output reservoir capacitor, the smoothing capacitor for the probably 200 volt rail, as you can see, that's dried out. There's no point even testing that. That's that one there, so I've put a new one in. Also the HT smoothing capacitor, I replaced that because although it looks okay, it's a little bit high in ESR. And there's another 4.7 mic cap, which is part of the protection circuit, which is also dried out, as you can see by the powdered electrolyte there. So I've changed that, and also I'm looking at these two here, part of the horizontal centering circuit. Now they next to a pot that gets very hot, and as you can see the jacket's shrunk, So I'm just going to change them whether they test okay or they don't. Right, so just for anybody who wants to complain they've not seen me soldering, let's take out them two caps, 803 and 802. That's one. And that's the other. Well, just for the hell of it, I thought I'd test them, and they're both open circuit. So that was another good decision. Right, so a little bit smaller. Let's just solder them in. And I am of course using leaded solder. I don't use lead free. It's absolute crap. Right, using the finest Lindstrom cutters, let's just cut them off. And there we go. All ready to plug back in again now. Wow, look at that. If only repairing flat screen tellies was that simple. So if we look at these connectors here, they're all labelled up. That's E5 and the board's labelled up E5. So you can't even go wrong unplugging all this lot. You just unplug it all and plug it back in. There's no need to take photographs of where all the connectors and the plugs go. So simple. And we push that back in. One screw there. One screw down the back. Is it there? Yeah, one screw in the top. And the board's in. How simple was that? Right, so with 5 caps in, probably about 10 minutes work, no more. And there might be a little bit of setting up to do now because things will have changed with new capacitors in. So let's turn it on and see what it looks like now. Right, so the flyback lines have gone. We've still got some issues. The grayscale wants tweaking. It's a little bit green. As you can see on that side, the width is slightly in at the side, but we haven't checked the HT rail yet. Might need a new reservoir capacitor there. But the picture, well, it's getting better. Yeah, that's looking pretty good so far. So let's just turn the colour off and I'll tweak the grayscale next. It's a bit green at the moment. Right, so just before anybody pulls me up on this is something I've largely forgotten about with the passing of time. This, what I referred to as the focus control, is not the focus control. It's the horizontal static convergence. The focus control is actually there on the CRT base. So I'll just point the camera at the telly. As you can see, or you might not be able to see, I don't know, but the horizontal static convergence is very slightly out. So let's give that a tweak. You see what effect it has now? So there we go, that's that set up. Let's try the colour. Yeah, not looking too bad. In fact, what we need to do is, I need to get some colour bars on so we can set the focus as well. Right, now instead of trying to cut corners, I've actually connected to the crosshatch generator. Let's do it properly. So that's not looking too bad. Now, I don't know if you can see. No, your camera probably doesn't pick it up, but there's 1, 2, 3. They're the Trinitron tie wires, but you might not be able to see them on the camera. Right, so not looking too bad. We've just got a little bit of a convergence error here, so I'm going to try and hold the camera in one hand, put my hand around the back of the set with the other. And let's see if we can adjust that out there. Right, so that's looking pretty good, that. Right, so I have just noticed intermittently the width's twitching in and out, so we probably just got a noisy pot, but that's a Convergence setup. The grayscale's looking a little bit blue. I think it's the red gun that's a bit down, but it's not too bad. And we look at the bars, they're okay. So let's get it connected to a video source now and let's put it on Skybox. Right, so I've just pulled out the power supply unit now because the lack of width seems to be down to the HT rail. We should have 135 volts and we've only got 125, and I think that's probably why it's twitching as well, because we might have a noisy pot. So let's just do a little bit of work on that. Right, nearly going to have to wrap up, the camera's nearly out of space. So we've got the HT rail 10 volts down. We're just going to adjust that for 135 volt. There we go, that'll do. Right, there we go guys and girls, all sorted. That's the Sony KV-2000UB Mark II from the 1980s.
Money to be won, but does anyone have...
Many thanks for watching my channel. I'll catch you in the next video.